Welcome to the deep dive. Today we are jumping into one of the most desirable real estate markets in the world.
But also one of the most complex.
Exactly. We're talking about beachfront land in Phuket, Thailand specifically, why it's so scarce and why its value just keeps climbing.
We really have to dig into this because the whole market is built on this kind of paradox. Phuket is world famous for its coastline.
Right, it's the main draw.
But that very coastline is a finite resource, and it's rapidly diminishing. We need to unpack the forces behind that, both financial and physical, and what it all means if you're considering an investment there.
And to really get our heads around this intricate environment, we're leaning on some fantastic analysis from the experts on the ground.
Yeah, this comes from a group called Ocean Worldwide. They're a luxury real estate agency, and they've been based right there in Phuket since 2004.
So they've seen the market evolve firsthand. Their director, Sandra O'Neill, has helped, literally thousands of investors and families navigate these exact kinds of high-stakes situations over the years.
And that's our mission for this deep dive,
Yeah.
to get you past the travel brochure and into the real technical and financial side of things. We'll look at the big shift from tourism to Phuket as a digital nomad hub.
Okay.
We'll also examine the hard physical limits of the island that are driving up prices and then get into the really critical stuff, the legal due diligence you absolutely have to do.
Let's start with the dream then, the classic appeal, because when you say Phuket, everyone immediately pictures it.
Oh, absolutely.
Swaying palm trees, that impossible turquoise water. We're talking about those postcard perfect spots like Koh Noi or maybe Freedom Beach.
Even the quiet luxury of a place like Nai Harn. And those images, they are absolutely the foundation of the market. But the story of who's buying has changed so much. It's evolved way beyond the short-term holidaymaker.
So it's not just the honeymoon vibe anymore.
Not at all. The coastline now is catering to a much more dynamic long-term resident.
And what's the demographic that's really changing the game here?
It's the remote worker, the digital nomad. The analysis from Ocean Worldwide really flags this as a major trend. Phuket is now a prime spot for people who can work from literally anywhere.
That makes perfect sense. They're not just looking for a hotel for a week.
Exactly. They want a life.
Yeah.
And they're drawn by this really unique mix of modern infrastructure, a cost of living that's, relatively low compared to the West,
And the paradise part.
and the irresistible appeal of balancing, as they put it, productivity with paradise. These aren't people who are happy just to visit. They want to finish a video call and step right out onto the sand.
Which creates a constant underlying demand for actual homes, not just hotel rooms.
Persistent demand for residential property, yes.
Okay, so if that demand is exploding, where does everyone fit? This has to bring us to the core issue, right? The supply problem. Why is beachfront land running out so fast?
The scarcity is just relentless. And you have to think about it from a few different angles. The first one is the most obvious, the natural limit.
It's an island.
It's an island. The coastline is fixed. You cannot create more of it.
And on top of that, huge chunks of it are completely off limits for development.
That's the second factor, the protected areas. Large stretches are national parks, they're conservation zones, and you cannot build there, period. Then third, you have the existing infrastructure.
The best spots already taken.
The best spots were taken decades ago. They're already occupied by big resorts, hotels, private residences. There's just very little prime land left for anything new.
But there's another layer of difficulty here that investors might not see on a map, which is the island's actual shape.
Absolutely. Phuket is very hilly. So that idea of a perfectly flat, easy-to-build-on piece of beachfront land, it's exceptionally rare. Most projects have to deal with steep, challenging terrain.
Which means more engineering, higher costs.
Way more complexity. You're talking about retaining walls, complex foundations, longer build times. It dramatically shrinks the amount of viable land for luxury homes.
And as if that wasn't enough, the environment itself is sort of fighting back, which changes where you can even build.
Coastal erosion, it's a huge factor, and it's getting worse with climate change and, ironically, some of the past overdevelopment. It doesn't just shrink the beach.
It creates new rules.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Local zoning laws have these strict setbacks rules that say how far back from the high tide line you have to build. So the most valuable land, the strip closest to the water, is becoming riskier and harder to develop. It's a dynamic kind of scarcity.
That is just the textbook definition of sustained value. You've got supply that is literally shrinking and being restricted while this high-end, long-term demand is growing.
And it's not just a concept, you can see it in the numbers. The analysis points out that prime coastal land in the best areas has appreciated massively.
How much are we talking about?
In some spots, you're looking at over 120% appreciation in the last decade alone. That's far, far more than general real estate on the Thai mainland.
And with returns like that, you're going to attract some very serious capital.
You do. And the first big economic engine is that luxury resort investment. The global demand for five-star hotels is relentless, so developers are aggressively competing for any prime plot that comes up. That competition alone sends land prices soaring.
Then you have the individuals, the wealthy expats and families looking for their own private piece of paradise.
That's the second engine, the expatriate influence. These buyers want privacy, but more than anything, they want uninterrupted, private beach access. A path from their villa straight to the sand that nobody else uses.
And that one feature creates a massive premium.
A huge premium. It completely separates the price of a true beachfront property from one that's even just one row back from the beach.
So when Ocean Worldwide calls these properties priceless, they're not just talking about the price tag.
No, not at all. It's about the lifestyle you can't replicate. It's the combination of a tangible asset like a proper title deed with the intangible asset of those incredible unobstructed ocean views. It's the sound of the sea.
It's a legacy investment.
It really is. It's something you can enjoy right now, but it's also a significant appreciating asset you can pass down for generations.
Okay, so the reward is high, but we are talking about Thailand. So for anyone listening who's interested, we have to talk about navigating the minefield of due diligence.
This is where things get serious. Due diligence isn't optional here. It's the absolute foundation of your investment. And the number one thing for any non-Thai investor is understanding foreign ownership law.
Right, because you can't just buy land like you would in, say, Florida.
Not directly, no. Foreigners cannot own freehold land in their own name in Thailand.
So what are the structures that people actually use?
There are mainly two. The first is a 30-year leasehold. This is very common for villas and apartments. It's often renewable, and it's the simplest, most straightforward route for residential use.
And the second option?
The Thai company structure. This is where you set up a company that is majority owned by Thais, and that company then legally buys the freehold title to the land. But getting the legalities of that company set up right is absolutely critical.
So getting the legal structure is step one. Step two must be verifying what you're actually buying.
100%. You have to verify the land title deed. And this is where you hear the term Shinote.
Shinote title deed.
That is the gold standard in Thailand. It's the only title that gives you precisely surveyed land boundaries, confirmed ownership, and proper government registration. It's non-negotiable for a high-value coastal property.
And why is that precise boundary so critical right on the coast?
Because of everything we just talked about, the erosion, the tricky geography. If you have an older, less secure title, boundary disputes are a real risk, especially if that high tide line moves. The Shinote just minimizes that risk almost completely.
Okay, so you've got the ownership structure, you've confirmed the title, then you have to figure out what you're even allowed to build.
Yes. You must investigate all the local regulations, zoning laws, height restrictions, and especially those rules about how close you can build to the water. They will dramatically affect your usable land area and your project's entire viability.
It really sounds like this is not a market you can just explore on your own. You need local, licensed experts.
It's absolutely vital. You have to work with reputable agents who specialize in these high-end coastal properties. They understand the land tenure, the company structures, the local permits. A good agent is your protection.
Speaking of protection, let's look at the future. With all this development pressure, what's the outlook for sustainability in Phuket?
You know, the future of the value there is completely tied to sustainability. There is a real and growing push toward eco-friendly resorts, better waste management.
It's not just a nice to have.
It's an economic imperative. Protecting the coral reefs, the marine life, that isn't just an aesthetic choice anymore. Keeping the island's raw, natural beauty is the only way to maintain its long-term economic viability and its investment value.
This has made it so clear. Phuket's beachfront land is this incredibly rare commodity. It's a dream property where you have this overwhelming demand crashing into a truly finite supply and some very complex legal hurdles. That's what justifies the price.
Which brings us to the really big, provocative question for the island's future. You have all these investors looking for their piece of paradise. But as development continues and land gets even scarcer, how do the local authorities and investors manage that growth?
While protecting the very thing that made the land priceless to begin with.
Exactly. How do you protect that raw, natural beauty? It is a very, very delicate balance, and getting it right will determine the value of the entire destination for decades to come.
So if you are ready to explore your options in this unique and technically challenging market, you really need expert guidance to navigate it. All the Chinook titles, the leaseholds, all of it. Remember, we drew this analysis from the specialists at Ocean Worldwide.
They're the experts you want on your team to make sure your investment is secure and fully compliant. To learn more about the current market and connect with them, you should visit their site.
That website is oceanwwp.com. Again, that's oceanwwp.com. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. We'll see you next time.